So let's do the Times. And apparently the far right are the biggest threat to Ireland. And if you haven't heard, far right now means you're opposed to being people stabbing children, essentially, Liam.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is another one. Every one of these, you hate to say it, every one of these stories are this way. Far right now a bigger threat to dissidents. Gardai say. Gardai is the made-up word that the Irish people have for police, which is ironic because what the Irish people are saying is, anybody who disagrees with the state, anybody who disagrees with multiculturalism, is an enemy of the state and of the people. And they're being lumped. Once upon a time, those people in Ireland were called Irish. Then they became white people. Right? Now they're called far-right people. Can you see how they're losing
What's
their
next,
identity?
Lewis? What's next?
What's next is they're going to be called Nazis. This is how these people go.
Yeah, I mean, it has been shocking. I mean, we saw this person who was basically... They tried to deport them 20 years ago, this Algerian person. Then they was on benefits, essentially, for 2 decades. And then they stabbed some children. You wouldn't think this would be someone we should really defend. But Sky News came out blaming the far right. People like John Simpson at the BBC were sort of worried about them, seemed far more worried about the response to it than the actual stabbing. And then what we saw was them attempting to censor people and to investigate Conor McGregor for hate speech, for complaining about it, which is so insane. And you just wonder, what are they trying to achieve with this? Now this claim that the far right are the biggest threat, I find it ludicrous, but what are they trying to... They must believe so much in their Team World project, to quote Lewis, in the utopian idea of the sort of liberal vision of globalism. Because why else, Paul, would it be worth allowing children to be stabbed and demonising your own people, calling them far right and censoring them? What is the goal behind all this?
Well, you said you were rusty earlier. You are not rusty. That was a brilliant point, Nick. And I agree totally with it. I mean, for a group of people, the reason they've snookered themselves, they've painted themselves into a corner with these type of things because they can't talk about the real issue. They can't talk about Muslims stabbing children. They are unable to talk about that. Mr. Simpson is unable to talk about that. It would be in his contract that he can't talk about that. He doesn't personally know how to talk about that, so he has to focus on the other thing in the argument, which just happens to be a bunch of very angry people who are angry because there was a Muslim person stabbing children. And this is what it's come down to now. For a bunch of people who are so obsessed with gender fluidity, they boil all their arguments down to binary choices. And the choice here is, do we support people who are angry or object to religious terrorism, or do we support the religious terrorists? And if that's the choice, I'm going for the former because I'm not happy about the latter.
Yeah, I should probably say we don't actually know what's in John Simpson's contract, but I know what you mean. It's the BBC taking a strange stance on it. And last little wrinkle I noticed on this is that the Irish are a distinct group, a distinct people, and they're an oppressed people when pitted against the English. But notice when they're in turmoil because someone's come in and stabbed their children, suddenly...
They're lumped.
Yeah, they're not a people anymore.
They can't be
they're Nazis, they're white people.
Yeah, it's appalling. All right, we agree.